Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, every episode, I always try and offer a little bit of value to the listeners. So if you're on your own startup journey, whether you're at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end, let's get everybody to pool our advice, pool those resources, and see if we can offer each other a little bit of value. Now, we've concentrated a lot recently on startup journeys. So today I wanted to concentrate on venture capitalists. Now, DCM Ventures is a venture capital firm with over $3 billion under management. Since 1996, they've invested in more than 325 technology companies across the US and Asia. Now, with offices in Silicon Valley, Beijing and Tokyo, DCM Ventures empowers our entrepreneurs with hands-on operational guidance and a global network of business and financial resources. But I invited tonight's guest on the show because he's an investment manager at DCM, but he has a particular focus on AI and agricultural tech. There are so many tech startups now concentrating on the area of agriculture and food tech and how AI and machine learning is increasingly being used for food production. That's what would be fantastic to get them on today. So buckle up, hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to San Francisco so we can get David Cheng from DCM Ventures on the show today. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is David Cheng. I work at DCM Ventures. We are a $3.5 billion AUM global VC. We have offices in Menlo Park, Beijing, Shanghai, Tokyo. We invest actively in the US, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and we primarily invest in Series A and Series B companies. My background, how I got to DCM, so I was born in the Bay Area, spent a bit of time growing up in Beijing, came back to the US for high school and college, worked at a early stage real estate company in New York called StreetEasy. We were ultimately acquired by Zillow. I did a bit of management consulting, and about 3.5 years ago, I joined DCM to focus on early stage investing.
Now, I read a great blog post written by you recently where you said that nature is our best guide for understanding artificial intelligence. And I thought this was a real unique take on the tech news that we read every day. But for anyone listening that hasn't read that post, can you expand on the points you made for the listeners?
Yeah, thank you. This was a post that I wrote, I think about 1.5 years ago, where I was comparing natural selection and evolution with the emergence of artificial intelligence. So engineering and designing algorithms has always been a very deliberate process in which there are very reliable steps where you can reach a stated objective. But with the emergence of machine learning and artificial intelligence, you're beginning to see the convergence of that design with how nature works in designing organisms. So in terms of, the examples that I used were you have divergent evolution where you have maybe data sets that, are related at first glance, but you're able to train them to reach a certain goal. Or you have an example is convergent evolution in which they're kind of happy accidents that you reached a certain goal. So you perhaps were training your data set to reach a different set of objectives, but you realize that this data set could be used to do, meeting scheduling or like translations and that kind of stuff. It was more so an article to guide businesses on how to implement artificial intelligence and machine learning for their businesses.
And another subject I don't think we talk about enough is agriculture and food tech. I mean, what role do you see in artificial intelligence and machine learning playing in food production, for example, too?
Yeah, great question. So I think, first of all, taking a step back, a lot of venture firms will look at artificial intelligence as a vertical. The way we really look at it is it's going to be a technology that is going to be so pervasive that you can't run a business in the future without using artificial intelligence. So in terms of agriculture and food tech, we made an investment in a company called Plenty, which is a vertical farming company, about 2 years ago. And the way they use machine learning is they'll look at all the different factors that they can implement in their farms to make lettuce or strawberries or basil grow into the type of lettuce that they want it to grow into. So the sweetest, the most robust, the most resilient to spoilage. And they'll look at certain factors like nitrogen levels, carbon levels, how much water they want to put in, how much light they want, UV light they want to expose the produce to. And they'll iterate over and over and over again until they find the best recipe of factors that make this kale the best type of kale. And without certain machine learning techniques and big data to optimize the crop cycles, there would be no way for us to get to that endpoint so quickly. And prior, what farms would do, it would just be know-how. Like last year's lettuce crop was I used this level of nitrogen, and it turned out all right, so I'm just going to keep using that. But with the IoT sensors that we've installed and with machine learning, we're able to systemize that and make that a very efficient iteration process.
And AI is a real big buzzword at the moment. And I think a lot of people are getting confused and saying there's a lot of jobs going to be disappearing, but we don't talk about the new jobs that will replace it. But I mean, are you finding that many are underestimating that AI is tough and incredibly expensive too? Because you need massive amounts of data and, more importantly, lots of humans to do it. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people don't realize is that AI has created, and certainly this is true of any technology, but there are a lot of jobs that are created as a result of that technology that would not have existed without it. So the best example is like the role of an AI trainer. And I mentioned x.ai earlier, which is a meeting scheduling company. So x.ai hires a ton of AI trainers that train our software to speak in a certain way that's similar to a human, that speaks with good etiquette, that can correct a user politely and say like, hey, are you sure this is Eastern Standard Time? It seems like like Neil lives in the UK, so why would you schedule this at EST? But obviously the bot can't say it in the way I just said it. It has to say it in a way that's very polite and very elegant. Yeah. So we hired people who are skilled in writing or skilled in rhetoric to train the bot to do so. We hire people who have not only the technical know-how, but have the humanities background to train machines to speak in a certain way that seems like a human. And this job wouldn't exist if machine learning were not a technology that had commercial applications.
Now, you did mention a few moments ago the company called Plenty, which, as you said, there's a vertical indoor farming company. But didn't they recently raise 200 million funding in a round led by Softbank? Did I read that?
Yeah, they did. And by the way, so Softbank is actually an LP of ours. So that was a relationship that we were able to broker. And it was good timing, too, because we invested in this company about a year before the formal formation of the Vision Fund. And when we spoke to the Vision Fund, they wanted to invest in transformative technologies that could, and again, this might be a very cliche point, but literally change the world. And when they saw Plenty, it aligned perfectly with their vision.
So what other areas do you see technology transforming agriculture and food over the next few years? And do you think we'll see greater use of drones, for example, to monitor crops?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. So I think drones is a great example. So there are two areas that we see where agriculture can be transformed by technology. So one is the area that you alluded to, which is labor automation of different sorts. So whether that's harvesting of fruits, whether that's using drones to do aerial surveying. We invested in a company in China that uses drone to spray pesticides on agriculture. And the reason why that's a big problem is because the farming population in China, the sons and daughters of the farmers are moving to the cities, and they don't want to walk around with a tank on their back and spray pesticides over their farmlands. So there's a labor shortage. So we invested in a company that solves that problem. In the U.S., you're seeing companies that are doing apple picking, or they're doing like field surveying through tractors. The second area that we're seeing where technology is being applied to food production is in the actual formulation and production of different types of foods. So whether this is different types of proteins, such as companies like Memphis Meats that are using essentially cultured cells to grow meat in labs, or companies that are using a vegetarian source of protein to create foods that have the characteristics of non-vegetarian foods. So whether this is milk that has vegetarian milk that has the characteristics of milk, so it'll curdle the right way when you heat it, it'll interact with your recipe the right way when you bake with it, or foods that just taste better. And this is a big data problem too, because what you do is you put in the characteristics that you want of this type of food, and then you go to a database of like almonds or Brazil nuts or whatnot, and you say, well, I need to formulate this somehow into something that looks like meat, tastes like meat, and can react like meat. And that's a big data problem as well.
Now, DCM Ventures assists entrepreneurs building world-class companies that will ultimately change how institutions and people use and live with technology. So if we do have any entrepreneurs or people on startup journeys listening today, what should they be doing to appear on your radar? I mean, what do you look for in a tech startup or project around this area that really excites you?
So this is going to be a very unsatisfactory answer, and I apologize ahead of time for that. But it really depends. It's really hard to say. There are a million reasons to invest in a company, and there are a million and one reasons to not invest in the company. So I'm just going to list a bunch, and I think it's really has to be tailored to your company situation. So reasons to not make an investment: the team is incomplete and there are deficiencies. Your business is shaky, as in the churn is too high, or your customer acquisition cost is too high, or your lifetime value is too low, and that's related to your churn. There could be technical risk if you're doing something that's very risky, or you're working with technology that isn't proven out yet. Competition may be an issue, because you may either have a very well-funded competitor, or this initiative could be something that's a big revenue driver for a large corporate. And that's certainly the case of when we invest in China or Japan. We always look to what we call BAT, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and what they're doing and what they're working on and what their innovation groups care about, because those guys can move very quickly in terms of competition. But that said, if you spend all day thinking about reasons to not make an investment, you probably go a year without making an actual investment. So I think what I would tell entrepreneurs is that they should come up with one irrefutable reason as to why they'll win at their problem. And it could be all the reasons I mentioned, like, look, we have the absolute best team because my head of product came from this, and my CTO came from this, and my head of growth came from this, or we have technology that has like a 6-month barrier, and that will give us enough lead time, or they've got some insight that no one else has, and we can bring this to market quickly. And if you guys don't give us money now, like, we're gonna go get money from someone else, and like, we're gonna win regardless. So you can come for the ride, or you can just watch. So really, just come up with that one reason that I just mentioned. Whether it's the market, the team, your technology, your marketing abilities, or whatever. Just think of that like one thing, because VCs are really good at finding reasons to not invest in you, and we know that. So we're just looking for that one reason to invest in you.
You mentioned there the reasons not to invest. Do you have like a top 3 of things that you just instantly strike people off when you hear them? Are you like common mistakes that people make?
Yeah. And this is something that's very, very core to our investment thesis, which is there's 2 things. I should mention the first one is the most important, and that has to do with where we sit in terms of the the fundraising timeline. So we primarily invest in Series A and Series B. So chances are there are going to be subsequent rounds in a company. So we really look for the ability of the entrepreneur to, in short, to sell, because the entrepreneur will need to fundraise in the future, whether that's from larger funds or corporates, or some of our LPs, which are the large Asian corporates that like Softbank and Baidu and Tencent. They'll also need to sell in terms of they'll need to hire subsequent people, because the team that we invest in at the Series A or the Series B, chances are it's not complete yet, because you're so early. Oftentimes, many of the founding team members wear multiple hats, so you'll need to recruit additional team members. So this ability for this entrepreneur to convey their vision and convey their vision effectively to future investors and future key members of the team is very important. The second thing is just like a very fundamental thing that I think a lot of other VCs do as well, which is looking at the unit economics of a business. So like very, very simply, this is how much it costs you to acquire a company, and then the lifetime value of a company, the lifetime value of a customer, of whether or not this makes sense. And it's very surprising too. A lot of entrepreneurs that have even raised money don't really have this this piece of their business understood yet, or don't have too much visibility. And it's just a very scary notion that like if your actual product that you sell doesn't make money ever, it doesn't recoup the cost of acquiring a customer, you don't really have a business.
So is there anything else that you can share with us today, especially as we begin to look towards 2018 now, and there's a whole new year of opportunities ahead? What's going to be your big focus next year?
Yeah, so I think a big focus of us is just to continuing looking to the areas we've made investments in the past. So applied AI and agriculture, food production, frontier technologies. And I think a new area that we're spending a bit more time in, and this has to do with our cross-border focus. So about 7 years ago, the prevailing investment thesis in China was, let's look to the US for models that we can localize in China. And we certainly had a lot of success there with companies like VIP Shop, 58, Tunio that were that drew inspiration from the US, localized in China, and were able to go public. I think now, given how quickly consumer technology and technology in general has evolved in markets outside of the US, specifically in Asia for us, we're spending a lot of time looking at models that are indigenous to China and seeing if they can inspire us to look at companies in the US and if we can do localized models in the US. So, I mean, some companies that we certainly have a lot of respect for in China are companies like Toutiao or Mobike or companies like Kuaishou and the like.
So before I let you go, can you remind the listeners of where they can find out more information about yourself, what we've talked about today, and also how anyone listening can actually contact a member of your team if they have any questions?
Yeah, definitely. I have a habit of getting to inbox 0 before I go to bed every night. So if you shoot me an email, it's dcheng@dcm.com. I 90% guarantee I'll respond within at least 5 days. They can find me there. They can find me at Twitter, ChengDavid923. I think all of our contact information is on our website. It's dcm.com. So shoot me a note. I've said it there. Guarantee a response.
Fantastic. And do you actually achieve inbox 0 before you go to bed? Because I try and get there every night as well, but there's always 4 or 5 that end up staying there that need a little bit more thought.
I do, and it probably wrecks my sleep schedule. But I do. When I see people, I tend to look at people's phones a lot for one thing, which is how many red notifications they have. And if that number is over double digits on any of the things, I'm in a bad spot with that person.
I've thought I had a bad case of OCD because I'm exactly the same. If I see someone's phone and it will say 892 messages or, 7, anything with notification on there, it just drives me insane.
Yeah, just delete the app. You're clearly not using it by then. Just delete it.
Well, a huge thank you for coming on the show today. I enjoy talking to people from all over the world and how technology is transforming multiple industries. But I don't think we hear enough about how technology is transforming agriculture and the food that we eat. And that's what you are helping to do here and helping people bring solutions and make them a reality. So a big thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me, Neil.
A big thank you for David coming on the show today. We do concentrate on how technology is transforming multiple industries, but I really wanted to explore the emergence of agriculture and food tech and being able to get a venture capital firm with over 3 billion in investments and 325 tech companies on the show today. I think that provided a lot of value. There's so many interesting points there about how larger corporations are going to actually integrate AI, and how agriculture and food tech using AI machine learning for food production is really taking off. And once again, despite all those scary headlines that AI and robots are coming to take away all our jobs, once again, it was great to touch on that point that AI is tough, it's expensive, and expensive to train up employees because you do need massive amounts of bandwidth, but most importantly of all, lots of humans to do it. And that's something that you don't very often see in these scary articles or headlines. So a big thank you for David Cheng coming on and sharing that story and those insights today. Now over to you guys. What are your insights in this area? What technology excites you in this area and what doesn't? Or even if you've just got a few questions. As always, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can catch me on email or you can get me on Twitter by tweeting me at Neil C. Hughes. As many of you know, I make most of my living through ghostwriting tech articles. And I've got a lot of articles this week on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. That seems to be the big tech topic at the moment, especially when I combine that with the amount of emails where people are saying, Neil, where would you advise that I can actually buy cryptos from? So I do get a lot of questions like this. So I think this is going to be something that explodes in 2018. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one too. So while I go off and earn myself a daily crust by hammering away at a keyboard, I hope you'll all join me again tomorrow. But until next time, my friends, come on, join after me. Don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.